Good evening. Cynthia Harrison here from Rhombus Healing Arts, and this is your intuitive energy medicine power reading and mystic musings. And tonight we are going to be musing about some reflections that show in our field and how we attract people and situations and what they may be showing us. So, g'day Marie Smith, how are you? So ultimately it's all about human relation or human relating. And really pretty much everything that I observe and I contemplate and I look into has something to do with how we relate, or even how the organism relates. So I suppose the discussion and what your questions will be will go the way that it needs to. Hey, Katie from Stroud, UK. Have you been on before? I don't recognise your name. Welcome, anyway. Nice to see you. So, yeah, if you were here last week, Murray, you were here last week, and we spoke about, if you remember, we spoke about some of the reflections and the mirroring and whatnot. So we're going to follow on from that. It doesn't matter if you missed last week. You can go and look at the play, but we'll probably cover some of that anyway in one shape or form, and who knows where we're going to go. All right, so I'm just going to get my myself on the phone so that I can see what I'm doing, and hopefully we get some people on, because I put a call out basically to let people know I'll be on. Sometimes I forget, most of the time I forget, and I just show up. Okay, here we go. So if you are having some challenges, some tests or challenges in relation to relating, then we can talk about that. Hi, Ma from Sydney. I don't recognise your name either, so welcome if you're new. Yeah, from Sydney. Yay, I was born in Sydney. Okay, I might just share this to my page, and pretty much that's all I'm doing, because I spend far too much time trying to get people on. So if you think that this will be interesting, and for those of you that are new, you'll have no idea what we're going to do and where we're going to go. So, you know, we'll see. But those of you that know what we're up to, and you think people are going to be interested in what we're talking about, pass it on or tag them, and they can join us or not. It doesn't matter. Okay, so posting there, and let's get started. Let's get started. So those of you that are new, or it's your first time here, so Katie's saying, we had a great phone conversation about a year ago. I'm now certified EM. Really? So you don't usually use the name Marianne though, do you? Or your name's different. Your name's different. Katie Holt. Anyway, welcome then. Yay, EM practitioner from the UK. Great. So are you year 1 or year 2 or year 3? I'm assuming you're not year 3. Anyway, okay. So, okay. Every week I live my life and things come up, or I speak to people, or I have sessions or clients, and themes come up. And this week is the same. I was noticing a pattern, like, as I said, everything is relationship to me. But I was noticing the patterns in how the patterns of behavior in relation to energies and how we get our blocks and challenges and tests and our behavior and whatnot. We can track that because you've got the relationship of the energies, you've got the relationship of the, your physical, your physiology, your, anatomy and physiology. You've got how we relate to internal, external, and vice versa. You've got how we relate to our loved ones or not loved ones, it may be the case. And I could go on and on. But it was interesting today because I had actually forgotten. From week to week, I sort of put aside what we've talked about each week. But because my last client was, I was looking into tracking the energy and overlaying it and seeing how it all interrelates and what the patterns and what it was telling me in each area, and then we cross-reference. So it's like nothing can hide because if it doesn't show up in one system for whatever reason, it can't hide through every system, so to speak. Now that might not make much sense to you all, but hopefully it does. What I'm saying is that sometimes an issue will come down through all of those systems to this core or very close to the core, and it will be the relationship of ... So last week we talked about, oh, you too, great. Sorry, I just jumped to Katie who said, you too. Okay, I can see your little picture, it's very tiny. I remember the name Holt, so there you go. I think it's the Marianne Holt that's throwing me. Okay, so what we were talking about was basically what are we being shown. So all the work that I'm doing, even the painting, the creativity, the technology, the energy medicine, the therapeutic stuff, the therapy, the trauma work, whatever. I'm constantly asking in numerous different ways, what's being shown? Show me what's needed. Show me what you're not seeing. And if I'm to be the conduit or the bridge that energy or that information comes through, what do you need to know? So I'm asking constantly. It's not magic. It's not like, oh, sometimes it is. Right, but most of the time, I'm directing the questioning. And, when I was working with a doctor today and in the overseas, and when I showed him the notes that I was taking from the tracking and the scanning, it was a whole page of like my scribbles and patterns and how everything interrelates and all the rest of it. And I forget, because it's just what I do, but I forget how freaking amazing it is. Really. Hey Janice, hey Tara. I forget how amazing it is. And when I'm talking to medical professionals and they're coming to me for their sessions, and we start looking at cross-referencing the physiology with the energetics, it literally is like, whoa, it's eye-opening. It's really exciting. So I get excited every session, every client that I work with, even in these sessions, like those of you that follow know that every now and then it's like, whoa, that's really cool how that information came in and how it cross-referenced and whatnot. So what am I being shown? What are you being shown? What are we being shown? What I am in the moment, what I'm judging, what I'm seeing, who I am, how that is reflected back to me, all of those sorts of things. So we went through last week. I'm just going to run really quickly through them. If you've got any questions, ask. Hey, Carrie. Sorry, just lost my place. My thought went to Kerry. Hi. Okay. Where were we last week? So being shown who you are, the reflection of yourself, that I am or I am not. Then you could look at, okay, are you being shown what you judge? So is what's in the world a pattern of judgment, or how you push their buttons, how you trigger another person or how they trigger you. And I was saying, ask what they're showing you, what they're showing me. So for years I've said, as you are, the world shall be. It's the internal flow to the external. So bear with me. If I'm saying things that are a little bit out there, please ask. I'm happy to explain and chat to you about it. And if you disagree, yay, great. I love a debate. Do you know that the Buddhists, well, I won't go too far into it, but part of their training is that they debate each other. And when you debate something, or you're not quite sure about someone else's point of view, when you debate it, it will either help you see another aspect, or it will help you see that you're going to stand true to, you know, no one's been able to shift that perspective. So when you're constantly challenging your own beliefs and conditioning patterns and your own knowings, that's how you grow, right? So so if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear from you as well. I get excited about seeing other people's points of view. So I'm racing a bit because I want to get to some other work, and I also want to answer some of your questions if you have any. So what are we being shown? What's showing you what you judge? And then we can go into, what do I see in the person that I have lost or given away, that has been taken from me? So these are ancient ways of knowing. I haven't made it up, okay? But it's what I've used myself, and then when I find the ancient texts and the ways of knowing, and I go, oh, well, that's cross-referencing and going, yeah, okay, they said the same thing. Well, what do they understand, and how does that reflect in my world, and is that what I've been shown as well? And this has been. So so I'm going to give you lots of examples, but let's just try and keep it. I struggle with the lineal structure, so I'm just trying to get that out of the way so then we can swim and free flow and get into examples and questions, and really look at what's showing up for you, right? Or giving you ways of looking at what's showing up for you so you can use these for yourself. So what's the electrical charge in the body? How does it feel in the body? What's the magnetic attraction to that person? Why are you drawn together or pushed apart? Because that's the magnetics. You pulled in or you pushed out, pulled in or pushed out. I call it magnetic force in other ways of knowing. I work with, like, literally all that I personally work with for my field is about building my magnetic force. And that then draws in pretty much just as I am, it just turns up, right? So that's why we do the work, so that as you are, the world shall be, but also you're being shown what you are. And that might challenge some people, because if you're having a lot of stuff show to you in your field, a lot of stuff on TV and around the world and whatnot, and it's triggering you because it's somewhere in your field. And it may not be a direct mirror. Do you see? So if there's injustice and somebody's on the television or a movie or at the shops or at work and they're triggering this injustice, bring it back. Where is that? What's happened? What is it showing you? Is it a judgment, or is it something that you hold, something that you lost, something that was taken from you? Yeah? So there's all these different layers of how we can read the field in regards to the relating and how we're triggered by a person, but also by a situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person, but most people have most trouble with other people. And that's why I work with complex trauma, because relational trauma is what most people have trouble with. Okay, so what am I up to? The patterns of behavior. Patterns of behavior allows us to see through a lens of what we're, like addiction or compulsion. So what we're giving away. If we're giving away what we hold dear to us, that doesn't make sense. Let me put it a different way. I suppose you could look at that as if your behavior, so for instance, if you're in a relationship and it's like you cannot do without that person, you text them constantly and you need to hear from them and whatnot, that's like an addictive lens, a compulsive need or want. And you're giving away an aspect of the self because you may feel that you may not even be conscious of it, but there's a lack within you. You're not holding what you're wanting from the other. And so it's like you need the fix. I always say that when we understand what we want from another person and we give that to ourselves, then we no longer need the other person to fulfill that. And it doesn't necessarily mean the relationship ends. It means that you no longer have expectations of that person. You know, you're not expecting them to fulfill a want or a need that you have at a deep level. And so contemplating some of this starts to get you to see what your wants and needs are, and then how that's showing up in the world, who you're connecting to. I was at a friend's place the other day and we were talking about this, about, you know, that electrical charge, or that it's not necessarily electric, but it's a charge within the body, and it sort of feels like the closest thing you could connect it to is love. But it actually isn't love as we know it. It's a charge of a knowing or a connecting to another human being that either has the same wounding or you're being called in to assist them with that wounding. So the way that I feel, because I feel people's energies, and there's particular energies that have a specific charge on them. And when I was younger, it really confused me because it felt like I suppose I'm going to say love, it's not quite the right word, a desire, right? That you want to be with that person. It's almost sexual or sensual. But it's when we realize that those surges and that electricity, that energy is Kundalini energy, Shakti energy, you know, divine energy, your life force energy. It's all the same thing, but it's creative energy. And we are co-creators. So when we get to certain stages, we all have it, but some of us will start to experience it, and it will surge and connect us or disconnect us from people. And it's confusing at the start because we don't understand the language of that energy. Okay. So we end up being, you know, for instance, okay, because this is what's come up about 3 times this week. People have asked me about this, and about twin flame, about soul flame, about soulmates, about, you know, all of these different labels for these sacred union or sacred relationships. And it's really confusing. It's sort of linked to this as well. So if we can work out what our lack, I hate saying that, but what we are not fulfilling ourselves with, that's a better way of saying it, and we start to work towards fulfilling ourselves to a completeness, then when we connect with another, we don't need anything from them. So it's just 2 human beings connecting in love, and believe me, when they come together, the third is beyond what they can bring. Right? So there's the general relationship where that happens anyway, but there's all of that messiness because we're judging, or we're wanting and needing something fulfilled in ourselves, and the expectation unconsciously is that that person needs to give it to us, or isn't doing something, or should be doing something. No, the other people can do whatever they want. It's us that needs to sort ourselves out, and they need to sort themselves out. And then when we come together, life's beautiful. Okay? You with me? Am I triggering any of this? You're still my friend? Okay. So Diane's saying hi. Hi, Diane. Kerry, Leanne saying hi, hun. Do you pick up any messages for me? Thanks. I'm not doing reading just yet, but we'll see. Jordan King. Hey, Jordan. Hello, will I get acting? Okay, so those questions I'll get to in a moment. I just want to get through this because we're talking about relationships. And then I will do some readings, I promise. Well, I won't promise because I never promise. I never promise anything. So if you have any questions about what I've already said or want some clarity, then we could go there. So patterns of behavior. What else do I want to say about that? I think that's it. So the next one was about, so we're going to start to get into the new ones in a moment, which are a bit more tricky, really. And, you know, ask yourself, are you being shown what you've lost? So that could be an aspect of how you were when you were younger. Have you lost an aspect of yourself? And that person is showing you, reflecting to you something around that. And so you may then have judgment on that. So they can all sort of overlay and intertwine and whatnot. Because sometimes we can be jealous of others that have something that we would love. And what I generally say, and even for myself, if I see something that somebody, you know, if I'm seeing that someone's really mastered something, I say, I'm that. So I will be choosing the reflection that I want. I'll be saying, I am that. And if it's something that, you know, I don't really want to claim, I'll say I'm not that. But then I might then still look at what it's reflecting to me on what level, and how is that showing up to assist me. It's information. It's information. It's like reading the book. I always say that my life is like the book. And when you learn how to read the book, then you get the information. So Katie's saying, do you think sometimes we connect with people that We have unfinished business on a soul level, past lives. Yeah, that's one of the later ones. So we'll get to that. Diane's saying, always your friend. Thanks, Diane. And Kate saying, love your clarity around the work we need to do on ourselves and how being in relationship mirrors is. Yeah. And the reason that I brought this up a few weeks ago was because every now and then I'll use the word mirror, and then I realize, I wonder if people understand that there's numerous mirrors. There's like the Asane, the ancient tribe had talked about the 7 mirrors. Okay, so this is sort of based loosely on that. So it's ancient wisdom. Okay, so where was I up to? I'm just trying to find my place because I've sort of gone off track a little bit. All right, so patterns of behavior reflects back to us our most forgotten love. So what we've lost, our unfinished relationships, that sort of links into what Katie's saying, but yeah, and on a past life. So yes, so that's where that would fits most cleanly around reflecting a way of life that's been lost or unfinished, and it could be over time, whether you want to look at that as past lives or you know, from early childhood. You know, that's up to you. You can use it however you like. Basically, yeah, unfinished around past experience. So yeah, read that however you like to. What else do I want to say about that? So you just keep seeing that, all of it. It will keep showing up to you. As you are, the world shall be, and that literally is. I don't want to go too much into this because I used to speak about it a lot, but the heart energy is this toroidal spin, and it spins out and on an angle, and literally what's inside, how we feel, spins out into our field. So there's the heart torus, and then there's the bigger toroidal or tube torus that is around us, and that's pumping around and out and in and out as well. As you are, the world shall be, right? So that's challenging for some people. And if you are deep in the depths of, you know, crisis, I'm not going to say it like that to you, because that would be it wouldn't be compassionate. Okay, so you know, you wouldn't say to somebody it's your own fault for something happening. You would look at the energy and you know, when the time is right, and go, what was it showing, and how can that assist the healing? Do you understand? Hi, Shelley. Okay. What's attracted to us? So that again is around, we could go into many energies. So those of you that have learned energy medicine, you know, there's vortices, they pull in information, they pump out information. We've also got our torus, our heart torus, our, you know, main toroidal spin, which is doing the same thing. We've got numerous energetics that are sending data out and receiving it, okay? And depending on how that's programmed. So for instance, we could go the chakras alone. The back chakras hold your beliefs and conditioning patterns, and that's what I was looking at today on somebody, and reminded me of this, because what's encoded or imprinted in those back chakras in early childhood is what is projected through to the front. The front chakras are more the present and what's here. The back ones are like what is feeding that. But then you've also got the higher vortices, the energies, the vortices, the 8 main vortices, which isn't Eden energy medicine. So I talk about it, but higher energies, and they feed the chakras. So there's imprints in there as well. Do you understand when I say imprints? So it's like it's coded. It's our conditioning from the past, and whatever you want to understand that past as, whether it's past lives or early childhood and your trajectory in life. Right. So that's all informing, transceiving. You're transmitting and you're receiving. So it does relate to other reflections in a moment, so I'll get there. I'm just checking on my phone that I haven't missed any messages. It's gone off for some reason. Messages from you, because I have to keep leaning over to, I don't think I have. I think Shelley was the last one. All right. So the next one we could look at was a really interesting one. Really interesting one. Oh, it looks like the image is all broken up. Am I broken up? Okay. Just put you there so I can see what's going on. All right. The next one is looking at our mother and father, right? Our caregivers. So it's up to you whether you want to look at it as biological or not, because I think it's more likely like who our primary caregivers were, right? And I often say, and you might have heard me over time say this as well, but this relates to one of these mirrors, one of these reflections. So it's funny how just innately this has come in and plays out. So when you see your mother or your father, you could look at it as, so there are those sort of, sayings around we marry our parents or our parent, and I do see that the traits in that come out, and they actually are shown in different energy lines as well, and it can be the chakras. So how I do chakra work, I also look at the levels, the layers of each chakra, and then so 1 to 7, and then within that what we could look at what age, who was involved, and all that sort of stuff. We can go really deeply into that work, and it can show a parent. And then you could look at, okay, well, see, this is how you get to the core. You get to the core of, all right, well, if this is showing up in your relationship today, and then we track the energies, and they're showing these patterns, and we keep asking, okay, what am I being shown? What's the pattern of behavior? So I'm asking the energies and tracking the energies the same way as I'm saying you could do this for another human being, because it's all about relationship. It's all about relationship. So the relationship to the energies, my relationship to your energies, if I'm tracking your energy, and vice versa, and then my relationship to you and vice versa, your relationships to your family and friends and partner and whatnot, You know, it's all these relationships. So we can also, I just had a memory of something, we can also act out some of the patterns of those parents that we've learned because we're imprinted. So I used to catch myself standing how my mum would. My mum had a particular way of standing. And I realized at one time, I think it was in my mid-20s, early 30s, I was like, oh my God, I literally am standing and had the posture of my mother, right? Just little things like that. But it's learnt behavior, and it's imprinted. So there's all these other ways. So it's something you can reflect on. Okay, so what's showing up for you? Are you reenacting or acting out some of the healthy or unhealthy patterns you learned as a child? Okay, so you could look at what's going on for you in that way. You could also look at, and this is the one that I love, I look at the relationship we have with our parents. Oh, what's going on? Really weird just happened to my computer then. Okay, my email and everything just popped up. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Another distraction. You see all these distractions, you've got to pull yourself back, pull yourself back. How our relationships with our parents, let's say our parents, reflect our relationship to the Divine Mother, Divine Father, is what I call that energy. You can call it all the supreme energies, okay? And I'm seeing this more and more, probably the last 3 years or so. I'm really noticing it, probably because, oh, there's weird stuff going on with my computer. Probably because I'm more aware of it now. So I'm able to track that better now than I was, you know, when I was younger. So I would see, you know, often I would feel the energy, and now I know what those particular energies relate to, but I would feel the energy and then would track the energy. And then I would ask the person their relationship with their mother or their father, whatever one was you know, speaking to me or calling, you know, was yelling the loudest, basically. Without fail, it would be the connection to, just say it was the father, their relationship with their parent, the father parent, we'll say, and then I would ask their connection to source or energy, or, you know, what the how would you say, the bigger picture, you know. But most people who come to me, I can speak to them about, you know, spirit and whatnot. I could say, you know, what is your relationship to the Father, the Divine Father? And it will reflect the relationship with the physical father. So if you have a distant relationship with the father, I would contemplate how you're connecting to that energetic or spiritual supreme source, God, whatever you want to call it, that energy. What is that? What is your connection? Does it reflect in any way? And you may not see it on first glance, because what it could be, so I'm going to go into this because this is something that I feel that's helpful for people to know. So I'm going to share it. When we pray, and praying could be meditating, you know, doing your creative process. So when I do my creative process, even this picture behind me, I'm writing, which is like a prayer. I'm writing an inquiry or I'm writing what the experience is, and then I'm literally in gratitude for it as if it's already happened. Most people, when they pray, they're asking for something, they want something, or they're demanding something, or they're like, you know, in so much fear that they're begging, right? So contemplate how you, if you do, you might not call it praying. It might be how you talk to the energies, how you talk to the higher self, how you talk to the universal consciousness, how you talk to God, how you talk to the Great Mother, how you talk to God, whatever those energies are that you turn to, the angels even. Some people are in, how do you speak to that energy? And does that reflect how somehow how that relationship is with the mother, physical mother or physical father? Does that make sense? Not sure if that makes sense. I don't think there's any questions. You still with me? Or I lost you? I think you're still there. You're just very quiet tonight. What's happening? Why are you so quiet? You're listening intently. Okay. For me, that one's really, I mean, they're all important, but I suppose because of where my journey's taken me and I started to look at, my trajectory or my path and refining my work, right? Which is this stuff. And I'm refining it for the self, myself, myself and the self, the higher selves. And when I started to see how I interacted with my parents and then looked at, is that how I interacted with the Divine Mother, Divine Father, I was like, oh my goodness, literally. And then are we asking for things like spoiled brats? Still be my friend, because I'm not saying you're a spoiled brat. I'm saying reflect, because if we are saying, you think about it, if we're saying, why haven't I got this yet? I've been praying for this, or I've been asking for this, or I've been placing intention for this. Reflect on that. Reflect on that. Because if your child was saying that to you, or you were saying that to your parent, everybody's going to have a different answer for that, but it's reflection, yeah? So how, and you don't have to do what I do, I'm just sharing experience, and you can tweak it or change it or continue doing what you're doing or whatever, it doesn't matter. But generally I'm not asking for something from me. I'm not asking for matter. I'm not asking for things. I'm not asking for money or possessions. What I'm asking is to be shown. Show me. Where is it? What might be the, show me. These are my words. I'm always saying, show me this, show me that, show me that, right? So it's like, then the world just gives me the direction, or things will just come into my field, or the person, the right person for what I'm needing. I don't even have to ask, because it's already in the field. Do you think that that energy can't hear you unless you sort of speak the word? You are the energy. You are are-ing, right? You're not doing or being, you are. And when you can sit in that place of neutrality, you're neutral. It is all, you're connected to it all. So the relating on the other levels is when you're in the polarity of almost like the challenge. Let me know if that makes sense. Sometimes I speak and I go, I don't even know what I just said. Okay, let's say. So Diane's saying, I'm here. Janice says, makes a lot of sense. Yay. Right, Murray's saying, yes, praying, asking, meditating, receiving. Yeah. Mercury retrograde, communicating can be challenging at this time. It's all very inner. Yeah. Does it make sense around what I'm saying about asking? Because I had many, many years ago, my friends used to say to me, why don't you ask for the lotto numbers? You know what? I didn't know why. And there was one, my friend Alex, she's not on here, but anyway, she's been my friend for, I don't know, 15 years or something. And, you know, I've practiced and experimented a lot on her over the years. And she said to me, why don't you ask this or why don't you ask that? And I went, I had to think. I'm like, I don't actually know why. And then I went, yes, I do. And the reason that I didn't, it was a conditioned thing. And the conditioning was, I was taught by my master to not ask for the self. It can't be from personal gain or for personal gain. It's not, how do I say this? I'll just say it this way. I don't want to experience the outcome of that. Okay. So when I'm working with you, I don't have an outcome in mind. So if you're a practitioner, this might be something interesting. It might not be. The client that I had this afternoon, he was messaging me earlier this morning saying, telling me something, and he said, I won't tell you that because it might bias your reading. And I said, you can't bias my reading because I have to be empty to do the work that I do. So some people, they could be biased by that because they'll have that information in their head and that will be leading them. But when I go into your energies and I'm scanning, what you've told me in the past or what I know about you, it's not there. It's purely the energetics of the now. Right in that moment, what is showing to me, what needs, what's speaking the loudest, i.e. When I say show me the priority system, and then I follow that and get the information for the priority systems for that moment. So what they've told me might be something that's helpful, but it's not priority. It's a symptom, and I don't work on symptoms. I work on the core energetics to align you so that the symptoms eventually dissipate. But if you're working from the symptoms back, you will be putting out fires. One of my mentors told me many years ago, she would say, when you're intuitive as well, you get so much information, and if you are following all of that information, it's like you're putting out fires and you're never actually getting to the depth of the information. And so I don't know why I'm telling you that. It just came in, but maybe somebody has been dealing with that, because I'm like, why am I telling you that? But you know how my intuition works if you've been watching for a while. Okay, so Shannon. Hi, Shannon. So do you feel that those whom have no connection to the physical mother or father can then become empathic because they end up having a connection with them, with the others around them? So not a grounded connection so not a grounded connection involves, but instead all around empathic connections with all they encounter. Okay, let me just feel into what you're actually asking. So those that don't have a physical connection to mother or father, so it might be that the parents have passed away, or maybe they, or even if you were adopted or in foster care or something like that, so your primary caregiver, they would be imprinting, yeah. But if you are an adult and you don't have a relationship with your family at all, it's just really I'll say yes to that, Shannon, but I'll also say on a sort of different path slightly that you could use what I've said to just contemplate how that is impacting, or has, it may not, but it's another way to get some extra information on how you are in the world. So if, for instance, you don't see your parents very often, or you might speak to them once or twice a year, how often are you connecting with the greater energetics, right? Or the greater source, right? So, and when you are, how are you speaking to that energy? Now, that doesn't need to be verbally, what's the relationship, I suppose, is what I'm saying. Look at the relationship you have with the higher aspects of the self. So bear with me, because how I talk to my energies, there's different levels, right? So that the higher self and the different aspects of the self are not the supreme source consciousness to me. So I speak to them differently. Yeah. So I will say, okay, I'll give you an example. This is how I work. I've always worked, and I continue to work, and I probably don't have to say it anymore, but I still do. Even before this call, I would say, Divine Mother, Divine Father, Supreme Consciousness, my beloved, right? That's how it's like, my beloved. Divine Mother, right? Feel it. Divine Father, feel it. Supreme Consciousness, right? My beloved. And as I say that, it's like, right? And it's just then beloved love, right? Now, it's always connected. That's the thing. If you feel that there's separation, and that's, something we're going to talk about later on, but it's come up now. There is no separation. But when you place intention, or it's like physics, really, isn't it? Quantum physics, that when you place your attention, or you're on something, it will change. It's like when I'm, for those of you that have seen my light weaving, I call it. So I'm literally looking at the sun, and then as I'm, sounds mad, as I'm paying attention to it, it starts to pulse and starts to move. So you can see some of those videos on my Facebook page, but there's pulsing. And I was actually saying to my sister the other day, because she knows Morse code and all of these different things from, when she was in the Navy and whatnot. So I've said to her, could you interpret that energy, basically the sun, in some of those ways that we translate, code and whatnot. And she had a look at it, and she said, it's different. And I said, well, so she can't, because I don't know Morse code, right? And she said, it would have to be in a certain way. And she said, but if you do that for me, then I'll be able to interpret the dots and dashes, basically. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm intrigued, because it won't be, it's not a human, right? And it's not, the sun doesn't speak Morse code, right? But that's how my mind works. I go, is there a correlation, right? Is there something that is similar? And anyway, so I just do silly things like that. I've got too much time on my hands, obviously. So Katie's saying, do you think about the philosophy of acting as if it's already here? Oh, yeah, definitely. Not asking, but saying thank you. Yes, exactly. So that's what I was saying. Thank you, Katie. That's basically intentional creativity. So everything that I do, I'm saying, I wake up and I'm saying thank you. I'm not asking for anything. If I do, it might be an experience. What do I want to experience today? But usually I'll say, I'm talking to my higher selves, I'm speaking to the higher energies of myself, integrated in with me, and I'll say, what would you like to experience? What would you like to experience today? And it went to when I was first doing this, and I do suggest this to some people when they're first starting to learn how to love and care for themselves and be kind to themselves, and they're awake, like they're on their spiritual journey or their evolution. This is how you integrate the higher self. And once you've integrated the higher self, then there's other higher aspects of the self. And when they're all integrated, you all work as one, right? So okay, on another level, that's contradictory, but I'm just going to leave it there because otherwise it gets too complex. So I would say, what would you like to drink? What would you like to eat? What hair color do you want, right? It comes down to that, because you're not working as the I anymore. You're working as the we and the us. I've sort of gone off topic a little bit, but it is about the relating and how the mother and the father, the parents, are showing you what your connection is or isn't with that higher energy. But also, all of this that we've been talking about is showing you your connection to the self, how you care about yourself, how you give yourself what you need, rather than the expectation of the other having to do that for you. Because when you can do that, you don't expect it. People can do whatever they want, and it won't bug you because you don't need anything from them in the way that you used to, right? So that you know of. I'm not sure what that is in relation to, Diane, that you know of. So Janice is saying, so do you need to ask for guidance, or does Source know what you are looking for without words? Okay, my first answer to that, because again, it's contradictory because it depends on what level we're answering from, okay? If you're starting out, I say that you're placing intention. You're placing the intention of what you would like to experience. But then if you overlay, I suppose you overlay that, are you asking or wanting from a place of lack or less than, or being unfulfilled, or you get what I'm saying? Because that's a place of fear. And that actually relates to one of the reflections, which is the dark night of the soul. So I think, have we done enough on the mother-father part? I think if you've got any questions, I sort of go all over the shop. So we might come back around to some of them because they all interrelate, right? It all interrelates in some way. And I could give you a bunch of other ways of looking at this as well, but this is really so you could start to contemplate how, if you have a test or a challenge, or somebody's seems to be pushing your buttons or whatnot, you could start to use these lenses to try and work out what's going on there. So rather than it being about them, because I could tell you one of the counseling sessions I had, it was a relationship one the other day. Not yesterday it was. It kept going back to the other person, and I kept bringing it back to them. I just keep bringing it back. But they're doing this, and this is what they're doing, and they need to heal this, and I can see that they're traumatized, and It's like, okay, but how do you feel about that, and what is the feeling? Where is it? What's it showing you, right? It's not about them, it's about you. What are they showing you? All that they are is triggering you. You can't change them. So why keep trying to change the movie screen like a touch screen when the movie's coming from the projector. You have to change the movie at the projector, not at the screen, right? Same thing. Did you get that analogy? I used to use that all the time, but now we're sort of, the technology is changing. We used to say, you know, they're playing the same tape. We don't use cassette tapes anymore, right? Okay, so we'll move on from the parent one. I'll just check if there's any questions. The son talking to you. Oh, that you know of. Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting, don't you think? Because Diane, you've seen my little videos and images over the years around the light and the. I say that I light weave because as I communicate with the sun, for instance, or the light coming, you know, the reflection and refraction, it starts to move and dance and morph, and so that's what I sort of try and show in these images. And over the years, it's changed. It's completely changed because the light has changed, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so as we communicate with anything, we communicate, we place attention on anything, we're changing that, even if it's matter. You know, we can't see it. Well, some of us can, some can't, but it shifts, and it's about relationship. So you do it with trees, nature, animals, people, the sunlight, you know. Anyway, so that's what some of my movies, my little videos are about. All right, reflection of the darkness, or what some call the dark night of the soul, or those challenges, our greatest challenges. What are they showing us? What am I being shown? And these challenges, our greatest challenges, show us our greatest fears. So it sort of relates to the prayer, really, and what was it Janice that was asking? Yeah, another level. I didn't answer that completely, Janice. Sorry, I got sidetracked. But yes, you can ask for guidance, but pay attention. I'm always talking about, because I'm trying to master it myself, how we can shift our language to change anything from, you know, being a challenge to being, you know, it just is, it's just there, because it's our perception from the perspective that we can see that from, and from our beliefs and conditioning patterns. So if you feel like, actually I was talking to, I was doing Kundalini yoga this morning. I was talking to the lady, and you know, it's out in the bush, and a few times because we both love walking in the rain. Now, most people don't like walking in the rain. Why don't you like to walk in the rain? Do you like to walk in the rain? I'd like to know that. You know? So this morning I was walking up the hill, and it was just drizzling. And it was so fresh and lovely. I really enjoy the rain and the freshness of cold air. Now, many people, and it's conditioning, because your parents might have said, oh, it's too cold to go out and play, or it's raining, or it's snowing, or it's, you know, no, you can't, you got to stay inside, or whatever. Like, well, why? And what's the fear? Maybe that you'd get sick, or whatever it is, but that's imprinted. And so when you just live your life and walk your life and experience it without so much of that polarity, it's raining. It just is rain. It's neither good nor bad. It's just rain. Experience it, right? So do you think I'm mad or? Yeah. So Katie's saying, I love this. Thank you. Have to go to work now. It's noon already. Oh, have a wonderful day. Thanks for popping in. And Diane's saying, it's a fascinating thought. I'm intrigued. Okay, so anyway, beliefs around fear and our lack or not, you know, what's going to happen to us. So it's fears, right? So however you want to look at that. Again, because I don't know who's going to see this, and some might be in that darkest time right now. And, you know, to talk about it sort of flippantly would be a little irresponsible. Yet on the other hand, it might be what you need to hear, because you will come out of it. But that's the polarity. There's more light in the darkness. There's more light in the darkness. So I haven't thought about that for a while. I used to talk about it a lot when I was actually, because I see energy and I feel energy, when I would have challenges, the body actually illuminates. And how I know that, so science says that too. We've got our biophotons that illuminate, and other energies as well. Oh, I've gone a bit funny. And other energies as well. But how I know that is from my direct experience. I'm a mystic, so I speak about everything from my direct experience. And I might give you theory from other places, but everything ultimately is what I've experienced. So I would go and lay on my bed in the dark, and I would literally see my body illuminate, like light up. And how can you stay in that state when you're looking at your body and it's like, I can't, there's different stages and different states, and I have done videos of it on that in the past. I'll see if I can find some that I was trying to share that, because I've always talked about there's more light in the darkness. It's a Kabbalah teaching, an authentic Kabbalah teaching around, and lots of other teachings around there's more light in the darkness. But then I started to experience directly that there was more light in the darkness, where I'd go into the darkness, into the blackness of the pit of despair, and there's the light, and it would bring you back out. And when you know that, not believe it, when you know that, when you go into a challenge or something that feels constrictive, you know that there's the other side there. It's the polarity of life. There is no light without dark. There's no dark without light. And so ultimately, majority of the time, what I'm talking about, and even with the energy work, I'm talking about being in that neutral space, the neutral mind, or that neutrality where you can experience the light and the dark, but you're observing it. You're observing it, because the light isn't good and the dark is the bad, and the dark isn't the good and the light isn't the bad. It just is. There's no separation. They're the same thing. Yeah. Okay, Diane's saying it's a beautiful feeling to be in the bush in the rain. Yeah, I used to take my children to the bush even in the rain. It awakens the senses. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just about changing your mindset, really, of what we've been trained or conditioned to do. So I live in a big old house, like it's an old house, so it's cold and it's dark, and I don't want to have the heating on all day, so I rug up and I sit on the veranda. So again, a lot of the images that you'll see and a lot of the videos that I take showing my office and whatnot, me sitting on my front veranda with the dog and the chickens and the roosters and, you know, the birds and whatnot. But I'm rugged up because it's winter here. And I might have 2 pairs of trousers on and like 3 jumpers and, you know, long underwear and my hat and my gloves and all the rest of it, sitting out the front like a mad woman. But the thing is, I would rather be sitting outside in the cold than inside in a dark house in the cold. Yeah. Like, it's choice. Neither good nor bad. It just is. It's your choice. How do you want to experience it? So how do you want to language it? So how do you want to think it? How do you want to feel it? How do you want to behave it? It's all links to that. Okay. So dark night of the soul, about those challenges. And we're given the challenges to practice, to master, to be able to have the experience of seeing ourselves naked, basically, like with nothing. Like I don't know how many of you have lost everything. I won't say I've lost everything, but I've lost in when people talk about their stuff, I've lost everything in that way numerous times. My house, all my belongings, you know, vehicles, like all the stuff, my career, all of that, gone, start over numerous times. Devastating at the time, but looking back, the best thing that ever happened. Because, you know, now, those of you that know me, it's like I move towards what I fear. I don't fear that much. I'm trying to think what I fear. But I move towards what challenges me. So at the moment, it's maths and like computer technology, right? So I decided, I'm going to learn that, right? It's not that it doesn't bring me joy, but I'm constantly challenging myself to up level, right? Because I'm trying to, like, how I do things. I'm not expecting you to be at all interested in it, but some of you might be. If we're looking at the world and everything that's in it, and we're moving away from things because we have a lack or a fear, or however you want to word that, we will begin to have behavior and triggers and whatnot that will assist us to stay away from that. And mine was math. And now I'm just going, you know what? Oh, and writing as well. And the writing one, I kicked to the curb because I was like, I've always wanted to write. And, you know, I was conditioned that my writing wasn't good enough and my spelling and grammar is pretty dodgy and all the rest of it. And it is. For all of you that have poor spelling and grammar. But I still wrote. So, you know, some of you know I've written those 2 chapters for the 2 different books, and they'll be published soon, by the end of the year. So in the next few months, right, done. I'm like, oh, that was easy. I'm not saying that was good. It was good. They may be really bad. Doesn't matter. It did it, right? Move on. So what next? Okay, what do I want to experience? What else is challenging me so that I can stand toe to toe with that and go, is it an illusion? Like, what is fear? You can't have fear if you understand there's no separation, right? You cannot have fear when you know there is no separation. What are you scared of? It's all you. Shelley's saying you prefer to not have limitations put on yourself by others or yourself. Yeah, because that's beautiful. That's exactly what it is. People will put limitations on you by telling you how clever you are, how smart you are, which categorizes what jobs and roles that you can possibly even attempt to do. So if you've grown up thinking that you're an average intelligence, but your dream is to be that, whatever that is. It might be, for instance, for me, it was a vet. I wanted to be a vet from very, very young, like 5 or 6 years old. I've had this love for animals, and I've always been surrounded by animals, like lots of animals. At the moment, it's the least amount of animals I've had in my life. I've always been surrounded by animals. But I was told very quickly, probably before I even went to school, that I wasn't smart enough to be a vet. So I was like, all right, okay. Left it at that. All right. And a doctor, medical. I was interested in the physical systems of animals and of humans. So it's interesting that what I do now, like I said, I was just working with, a lot of my clients are medical practitioners, doctors and nurses and different therapists and whatnot, right? But we're looking at the energetics of it. Energy practitioners are the doctors of the future. In fact, energy practitioners are the doctors of the now. Because we used to say the doctors of the future, but now is now. Okay, let's start sort of. So Dark Night of the Soul, it's really about the opportunity to move through challenges with grace. So thank you for the challenges. Now, some of you may not be able to get there yet, and that's okay, because I can remember when I was going through some of my challenges, there was no way I was going to say thank you for giving me this, right? I'd be like, oh. Everything that happens now, and like I understand that my life is probably more the extreme than the norm, right? But it's an example. I'm modeling the different aspects, right? So, and none of them is better or worse. Wherever you are is okay. If you're not okay with where you are, then some of this you might want to contemplate, but we're not judging anybody. We're not saying that, oh, you should be further along or you should be doing this or that or the other. No, wherever you are is perfectly okay. So saying that, God, I'm carrying on tonight. I'm in a funny mood. Lost my place. Oh, okay, so literally I'm walking through the house. If I bump my knee on something walking past, I literally am in the habit of basically saying, oh, okay, thank you for that. You know what, I'm not paying attention. You know, it's like I don't go into this big commentary, but I might just go, okay, see. Same with the animals, same with when things are changing in the field. I'm like aware and I'm just like, thank you, I see you, okay, move. And I just keep walking. But I'm aware of it all. And I suppose that is it, like I'm conscious of it all. So when things are happening that don't feel so great, especially if the more contractive or constrictive it is, the more thankful I am, right? So literally sometimes I'm walking around the house going, thank you, right? Thank you. Because it's like, was it, who was it that said, I think it was Janice was saying, I think it was Janice that was saying earlier about being as if it's already happened, okay? So rather than saying, that's happened and blah, right? I don't want to feed it. I'm just saying, okay, thank you for showing me. I don't know what's being shown, but thank you. Thanks for showing me, because it'd be something, and it'd be something in relation to all the stuff that we've talked about tonight, right? The different reflections, and because as you are, the world shall be. So I'm not paying enough attention as I'm moving through, or if I am, if your car breaks down or something like that. A friend of mine was traveling recently and lost his passport in between one plane and the next plane and had to literally road it back to another country. Like he couldn't, it's bizarre. But some people would go, you know, be really upset about that. But the thing is that we could see clearly why he wasn't meant to be going on to that next path. It wasn't the right time and something else showed up. So sometimes when you're caught on looking at the lack or the what didn't happen, you're missing what did happen in a way. Okay, so the dark night of the soul is around your mastery of the tools that you've accumulated, how you can move through your challenges with grace. I love that word. I love the word grace. Yeah. How you react, or how you reach down into the center of your being, because that's what you're being asked to do. You're being asked to reach down into the center of your being. It's like you're being constricted, like, and you feel like you're just dying because you have to go deep into that darkness, deep into the center of your being. And we find ourselves in between the light and the dark. We find ourselves in between the light and the dark. We are in between. We're the space between the space. We're the in between of the polarity, the neutral space, the neutral space. So Shelley's saying, would you say this involves synchronicity to a degree? Okay, I've got to work out what of what I said, because the questions are time lapsed. they come in later. So yes, a friend of mine has a wonderful way of explaining synchronicity, but I can't paraphrase it right now. He's a quantum physicist, so he talks about, synchronicity and coincidence and all those sorts of things. But I would say don't get caught up on the word. Don't get caught up on the words. Observe the happening. What we try to do is label or find the words, and you'll find that even though I'm using words, a lot of what I'm saying doesn't quite fit. And Diane, if you're still there, because we were talking the other day, I kept trying to explain something. To me, it was wonderful. Like it was just such a experience, but there were no words because it was describing the indescribable. There's some things that there are no words, and there shouldn't be any words, and it's something that is just for you. So there are things that I experience that I don't share because I don't have the words yet. And even if I did, I don't know whether I would, because I share pretty much everything, really. But there are things that are so intimate that it's just for you. It's not to be shared. It's just between you and the greater energies, yeah? So what time is it? It's 7:20. All right. So think about if you've got any questions or comments or whatnot, and I think I'll just wrap that up. I think I covered everything that I wanted to around that, going on from last week. But the important thing, for me anyway, what I feel like when I'm feeling into it is that, because I'm teaching about polarity, oh, here we go, I can give a plug. because it's talking about polarity in regards to earthing and charge and not necessarily light and dark, but it is light and dark, you know, positive, negative, you know, mother, father, you know, those sorts of polarities, north, south. And how, you know, it's just another way of looking at it, because I'm always talking about sitting in the center and observing, being the watcher. So in an Egyptian mythology, whatever you want to call it, they would call the person the watcher. You get to a point where you're the watcher. I tend to say the observer, but you're observing what's going on. You are it, but you're observing it. You become the observer. So what happens when we get pulled into the movie or the illusion? We start to spiral, and that's where it hurts the most, let me tell you. So physically, that's where it starts to hurt the most, is because you get pulled into the movie. So you're watching the movie of your life, and then at some point or other you forget that you're watching it, and you get pulled in to interact with one of the characters, where those characters are just showing you all of the things that we just talked about. And so when you can observe, like you're watching a movie going, oh, okay, she's doing this now and she's doing that. Oh, how do I relate? Right? But if you're getting pulled in and that character's triggering you, and you start to respond to the character, so the person standing in front of you, as they're the one with the problem and they need to change, then you can be missing a lot of, remember at the beginning, what am I being shown? What am I being shown? And then you can go through what we've discussed. So Shelley's saying, with regards to being present and aware. That's a cute little picture, Diane. I haven't seen that one before. Yeah, I think I answered that, Shelley. I think I did. So, yeah, things just tend to flow more. So, if all of this can be tracked energetically, they can also be, so if you want to, if you're struggling with a relationship, or any relationship, a relationship with your body, or a relationship with your energy, a relationship with your partner, a relationship with somebody that you have a charge, an energetic charge, and you want to be in relationship with them, anything like that, you don't need to book in a full session. You can if you want, but that's what the 30-minute session could be, discussing that, just getting some clarity on some of this stuff. If you want the whole energy tracked and aligned, then you know you would book in for a full session. I've also got in September the Subliminal Stress Invisible Shadow, which is about really what these interactions, or the outcome physically and energetically, so what your nervous system, how your nervous system responds, your nervous system health and wellness, where you're stressed, or what's going on with the trauma response or reaction, how you're earthing in regards to the charge between that light and dark, and the neutral energies that really are who you are, what you are. The human experience is the polarity experience, the earth experience. So when we die, that's what stays. It goes back to the earth. But the part that I'm speaking about, that's that neutrality, is what goes on. It's who you really are. It's who drives this vehicle. Okay? So when that is connected with and strengthened in regards to how you interact with it, that becomes stronger. That part of who you really are becomes stronger and steps forward and is the watcher, the observer. And so you can see all that stuff very clearly, and you stop reacting. You respond rather than react. Yeah. You start to see it as purely information. You go, oh my goodness, that person's just shown me an insecurity from when I was 10, you know, a reflection of the, you know, the mother maybe, and how that's carried on through my life and relationships with females, for instance, or, you know, whatever, or how I judge. Why do I judge particular women? And or they trigger me in a certain way, and then I'm judgmental about that. What is it within me that is showing there, and what am I judging about myself? So you see how it's like the love for the self, the connection with the self, how we interact with the self, and that's all the layers, not just the physical self, right? Diane's saying is me. All right, so do you feel complete, people? Are you fulfilled? Of course you are. Now, it does take, you know, I'm not that arrogant to think, or ignorant, or whatever word you want to use there. Sometimes I'm speaking about processes that they have multiple levels. So if you're not at, or you're struggling with a particular aspect of any of this, it's okay, right? Because if you start judging yourself to go, oh, well, okay, when I'm speaking to ask for direction or clarity on something, oh, I should be doing it a particular way. No. I suppose I'm bringing awareness to it. Bring awareness to your language and just see how there might be aspects of that that have come from your past, how your family spoke to each other, or how, you know, is there an expectation that you ask for something? And so Diane said, I'm working on being fulfilled. I never stop learning. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say something about that, but I think I'll leave it. But yeah, so it's about not judging the self harshly, but observing the behavior and then just redirecting that like you would a child, you know? You just gently redirect, gently back to the center. You go out into the tornado, bring yourself back to the center. Go. You know, I was talking, we're doing Kundalini yoga, and well, even with the meditation, I've got an EEG, and I was experimenting with it. And it's not about getting to a place technically of calm. It's about how often you can bring yourself back to calm, right? It's the recalibration. Because if you can recalibrate, if you can practice that recalibration, so you go off, come back, go off, come back. So I was wearing it because there's an app where you hear little birds when you are calm or at a particular brainwave state. And so because that's my life, right? So I had lots of birds, and I was like, oh, well, that's no fun, right? So what I did was challenged myself, you see, always pushing, always pushing. I was like, I wonder if I could eat my breakfast and have just as many birds, right? So that means, you know, you've got your neutral state, you've got your, you know, your agitated state, your neutral state, and your calm state. So I wanted to be able to eat my toast. The thing is that when you move your muscles of your face or even blink or move your arm, then it disrupts the reading. So it meant that I was teaching myself to eat without triggering particular responses. So that's out there. I'm not expecting people to do that, but what I'm saying is wherever you're at, you're mastering that stage. Wherever you're at, that's your mastery. That's what you're learning. That's what you're moving through. You have the opportunity, remember, the opportunity to move through the challenges with grace and ease. So wherever you're at, perfectly okay. That's the place where you're mastering. Okay? Don't look at other people. Don't look. You are perfect, okay? You are perfect until you look outside yourself and then start to see what other people are doing. Think of that. If you're just doing your own thing, perfectly okay. How you look, how you talk, how you move, how you think, how you are. And then you go somewhere and somebody else you might be judging, think that they're better looking than you, smarter than you, more proficient at something than you, whatever it is. And there's that comparison. So isn't that interesting that when we're on our own, in our own self, so if you don't compare yourself to anything, you just are. Then there's no lack and no want or no need for all of the stuff that we talked about earlier. All right, I think I'm going to leave it there. Sorry that I waffled a little bit. I never know where I'm going to go on these calls. I did get a couple of questions earlier, but I'm sure that those people are probably gone now. So I didn't really get to any readings. But if you wanted to have a private reading, message me through Rhombus Healing Arts or go to rhombushealingarts.com, the website, and you can book a session, a consult, ask a question, get your energy tracked. I'll leave it at that. I think that's all I had to say. There's no other questions. I'll just have a breath and I'll see if there's any questions. But thanks for turning up. We haven't got as many as usual today because I didn't share with everybody, but I felt like whoever was supposed to show up would show up today. It's not the quantity. All right, I don't think there's any other questions by the looks. If you do have any questions, pop them in later because occasionally I will go back and have a look. Oh, Janice has said, love the grace and ease, beautiful. Yeah, it is. So if you remember that, write it on a post-it note or something like that to remind yourself that the challenge is, your opportunity to move through with grace and ease. Okay. Thank you so much for showing up. And if you keep showing up, I keep showing up. if there's something that you want to talk about or want something, you know, one of the topics to be around, I would have done some scanning, but there wasn't really any questions around that. There was two earlier in the call, so apologize for that. But you know, every week's different. Sometimes we do a lot of tracking, energy tracking and whatnot. This technically is energy tracking, but it's in a different way, because then we can add, like if you did have questions about any of this, we could have gone into, you know, what was sort of showing up. We could, track that energy. We could see where it was within the chakras, within the meridians, within the vortices, within the other energy systems, whether it was, you know, what line it's come down and all of that sort of stuff. So, so we can track all of what I've talked about energetically, because everything is energy. I saw some stuff coming in. The quality is good, yeah. And Shelley's saying, I missed some of the first part of our chat. We'll re-listen to it now. Thanks for sharing the insight. Have a lovely eve. You too. Thanks, Janice. Thanks, Shelley and Diane and everybody who showed up. Love you and leave you. I'm going to have some dinner. Mwah. But yeah, leave your questions if you have any after we've finished. You might go, I forgot to ask that, or send me a message. Okay, bye. And share if this was important to you in some way. Share with your friends. Okay, see ya.